Hi, welcome to Social Media Planning with Gordon Snyder.
Hi, Christina.
Thank you for joining us.
Sure. Well, thank you.
These break time videos are sponsored by the CCTA, the Centers Collaborative for Technical Assistance, an NSF ATE-funded grant. CCTA's original purpose was to respond to a request from the Department of Labor, DOL, to the NSF to have ATE centers provide technical assistance services to DOL tax grantees. And now that tax grants are over, we are focusing strictly on helping NSF grantees and proposal writers. Our deliverables are to provide technical assistance webinars, workshops, and best practice documents.
Great. Well, thank you, Christina. Again, I'm Gordon Snyder. I'll talk a little bit about social media and initially, the first thing you really want to do is you want to create a social media plan. Okay, and you really need to do these four things. You need to research your competition. You want to know who your competition is. This may be another college. It may not necessarily be direct competition, but let's say maybe it's another college. You're watching another college that you think is doing a good job of working with social media. So you want to take a look at the social media networks they're on. You want to look at how they're using them, and that'll give you a baseline of what you should be doing too, so you can learn from some other people. You can find some competitor intel if you look at things like Facebook Insights, which is part of the analytics. But the best way to do this, I think, for myself anyways, has been to look at what other people are doing. If I like what they're doing, I'll take some notes and try to do the same things. Now, the next thing you want to make sure you understand is your differentiators. Okay, these are the things that make you better than the competition. It could be your programs, it could be some distinguished faculty awards, those kinds of things. Your campus, where it's located, maybe you have great parking, and things like that you may not think are so important, can be very important to a potential student. And you want to make sure you use some type of differentiator into your content on a weekly basis. And if you do have money to do this, and it could also be time and dedicated time, these are the things that make you unique. And these are the things you want to really think about when you are promoting your programs. Now, the third item here, research the social media industry. If you keep track of what's hot, I guess, keep track of best practices. Again, watching what other people are doing that are doing a pretty good job with this stuff. Keeping up with different algorithm updates, how different platforms are handling different kinds of content. This stuff is always changing, so you really want to keep your eye on this and adapt accordingly as you move through this. And the last thing is to do a content inventory. Now, this is basically, it's just a list of news, articles, blogs, videos, testimonials, photos that you already have that you can use throughout the year. And you can use these if you can identify some gaps in your content. You can kind of lay these out in your plan and figure out how to use them to fill those gaps. All right. Now, you want to make sure you also take a twofold approach. There's two parts of this stuff, okay? There's the part you plan, and then there's the things that come along that just happen to come along. And this is some people refer to this as on-the-fly responsiveness. And what this does is it ensures your presence is authentic and engaging. Both of these elements are necessary when you use social media. You can't just do one and not the other one. You want to be realistic about your competition, the budget, the staff, the timeline and goals. All this stuff is important. But it's also, social media has a sort of a fluid and a conversational component, and you can't always plan that stuff. So when these things come along, they can be used very effectively. You don't want to ignore them. All right, let's take a look at some steps now. And these are some specific steps. I've got 10 steps here. So I think there's a slide for each step. But you want to make sure you set measurable goals. So your social media goals should be measurable, in most cases directly aligned with a strategic goal. And I've got a couple examples here of strategic goals. So most of us are looking to increase the number of inquiries from local students. And we're also looking to improve our online brand and reputation. And you want to think about and identify ways that social media can help. And I've listed a couple here. Under strategic goal 1, increase number of inquiries from local students. You want to build awareness about your program by engaging current students. Current students can be used very effectively in promoting the content and promoting your program. So you can see there's a couple things there. And then for strategic goal 2, which is online brand and reputation. So you want to provide a positive public-facing medium for current, prospective, and former students. And you want to offer a platform for more social proof via online reviews. These could be online reviews. They could be comments. We'll talk a little bit about this stuff as we get into it a little more. So, but again, setting measurable goals, social media specific goals, and just a couple other comments on this slide. If, let's say your goal is to increase brand awareness again, you would want to maybe measure follower counts and post reach. So you want to start looking at some of the analytics for the different platforms. Facebook has something called Insights. Instagram has something also called Insights. It's in the business page of your Instagram feed. If your goal is to drive website traffic, you want to measure referral traffic and bounce rates. You can do that with Google Analytics. If your goal is to generate new leads, create social media specific landing pages, and you want to monitor the clicks and conversions. We'll talk a little bit more about this in a bit too. If your goal is to increase engagement, you want to measure the number of likes, comments, shares, and mentions your posts received. So these are all things that are pretty easy to look at and easy to follow, easy to measure. All right. Step 2 is tactics. Okay, you want to create a list of tactics. Once you've identified your goal, you want to put together a list of tactics that you're going to use to carry out that goal. Each goal you list should have its own set of tactics. There could be some overlap, and I've just picked out strategic goal 1 here on this slide, where again, increased number of inquiries from local students. We already said social media can help by building awareness and using ads and content to drive growth, and you can see here on the right, the right-hand box here, I plan on using these specific tactics. Maybe you could create a list of, let's say, 20 students, your current students, that are willing to reshare content on their personal pages. You want to create at least one new piece of content every week to promote across social media networks. You want to monitor and choose the top performing post each month, that should say, and promote it. So these are just some suggested tactics you may want to think about. All right. This is really important. There's a third step here. Select social media networks to carry out the goals. And you really want to think about targeting your audiences here. And I've got a list of, this is a group called Finale that I borrowed some content, or I've used this group as a reference. Some of their material is really good. But if you look here, we've got each platform with the largest chunk of their audience, I guess. Now, for example, if you want to reach millennial parents, and parents, I feel, and I know from recent experience, have a pretty big impact on where their children go to school and what they end up studying. Students may not tell you that, but it is the case. So let's say you want to reach millennial parents. You probably want to use Facebook and Instagram. Your current students, though, or maybe the students you're targeting, are most likely to be on Snapchat and Instagram. So these are things you want to think about. If you've got a small department, and you don't have a lot of time to put into this stuff, I would probably still recommend Facebook for parents, and Instagram. Instagram kind of cuts across both parents and students. Those would probably be the two I would pick, along with Twitter. I personally really like Twitter also. Um, so and you're seeing this if you look at the big schools, a lot of the universities, for example. These are what they're targeting right now. Twitter has become pretty interesting at the universities. It seems like a lot of the sports teams are using it. I noticed each sports team, basketball, baseball, soccer, football, whatever, seems to have their own Twitter feeds. So, again, these are some things to think about. Think about who your target audience is. All right, 4. Step 4 here is to set expectations. And there's personal expectations and there's team-wide expectations, and they're both necessary. The expectations include things like how frequently you post, if there's a budget, what your ad budget is. If there's no budget, or if there is a budget, you also want to look at the number of hours dedicated, what kind of hashtags you're going to use, and listing who's involved. As far as post frequency goes, you want to determine how many times you're going to post each day or week on each network. And a good benchmark, if you look at what some of the experts are doing, they're going once a day, posting once a day on Facebook and Instagram, while Twitter is a little more lenient. You can go up to maybe around 10 tweets per day, the experts are saying, and at that point, anything over 10, and the engagement tends to drop off. You're posting too frequently. If you like to post more frequently on, let's say, Instagram and Twitter, you want to use the story option. Instagram has a story option, and Twitter has something called Moments, where you can string a bunch of tweets together. These tend to get more engagement for people that are posting more frequently. So again, these are some things to think about. Ad budget. Most departments now at the university level, I think, are budgeting a couple $100 a month per social network. Something to think about. Anything less will be difficult to generate necessary exposure. So if you have the budget, it's a good idea to pay somebody to do these kinds of things. So as far as hours dedicated, you want to determine how many hours each day or week you're going to spend posting, planning content, posting content on the fly. Responding to comments is very important. We'll talk about that. And if it's not your full-time job, and I know it isn't for most of us, maybe an hour a day, I think, is a good time budget. Hashtags. You want to make a list of the hashtags you use and when, and you can do some of this. You can collect some of these doing some research, but you should have at least one hashtag you use across all posts on social media. That could be your department hashtag. Maybe it could be Colin IT for the Colin Information Technology Department as an example. So hashtag Colin IT. You want to use that across all your posts on social media so people can backtrack and find where it's coming from. And then you may have some additional ones associated to individual campaigns. Maybe you're trying to recruit for the Cisco program at Colin, for example. So use hashtag Colin IT and hashtag Cisco networking or something like that. But you want to list these out. You want to have this list in front of you and figure out when and how you're going to use them. And then we get into the responsibility. Setting responsibilities is key. So we'll talk a little bit about this in a bit too. All right. Now, landing pages. Landing pages are really important on your website. You want to have a set of landing pages that are optimized for social media, meaning they're responsive and mobile friendly. This is a landing page from the University of Massachusetts, just up the road from me here, and they do a very good job. They've got a large marketing staff there. but they've got their website set up with a number of landing pages, the different divisions, different departments, the sports teams. This is one of their main landing pages. So you want to have something kind of catchy and interesting on your landing page. And you also want to make it responsive. It needs to be viewable and on mobile devices. Most students, potential students and existing students, for example, they're pretty much on their phones all the time when it comes to looking at this stuff. All right, step 6. Step 6 is to plan content distribution. And this is basically when and where you'll share content. And it's a major component of your social media plan. And there's 4 steps, and I've listed the 4 steps here, and they're all pretty simple. You want to align the first one, you want to align your social media calendar with academic events, athletic, and admission calendars, okay? Determine which events you want to promote, how far out, how often. From here, you can build the initial framework of your schedule. So maybe you've got some different competitions. There's a lot of cybersecurity competitions going on right now on different campuses. Okay, that would be an example of an event you would want to target. Step 2, fill in the gaps with additional content that promotes your differentiators and mission. So you can use the content library that we talked about earlier that maybe you've already created when you conducted a content inventory. So those are things you kind of save, and you can use those to fill in the gaps along the way. The third item here, create content branding guidelines for social media. This is really important if you have numerous social media people creating graphics and sharing content across different social media networks. So these are things, let's say you line up those 20 students, you would probably want to have a little conversation with them and discuss some of the guidelines, things you can post, things you can't post. And again, the 4th step here, and this is really, really important, make room for authentic on-the-fly content each week. And these are very effective. You can use those Instagram and Facebook stories, those Twitter moments to do these. So those are very nice for doing those kinds of things. Or you can, when you're putting your calendar together, you can actually plan maybe 1 or 2 weekly posts that are part of the original calendar. So that's something, again, you want to think about. Okay, step 7. Step 7 is assign tasks and due dates. It's we all know assigning tasks and due dates, as much as we hate them, are the foundation of just about everything we do that ends up being successful. You can have all the tactics in the world, but if they don't actually get carried out, you never end up meeting your goals. So in general, each tactic will likely have individual due dates, and you may or may not have the same persons responsible. And this is just an example here. Livingston was one of my better students this past semester, so I listed him as the person responsible on this slide. Okay, step 8. Okay, step 8, expect the best and plan for the worst. This is something a lot of people forget. This stuff is public. You're open to bad reviews, negative comments, angry community, and you're going to get some if you stick with this stuff long enough. So you want to think about and try to put in writing how you're going to handle these things. What happens when someone writes a negative comment? What happens when someone writes a negative review? How are you going to handle a crisis? How will you interact and engage with your followers? So as a general rule of thumb, you want to respond to negative reviews and comments, especially if what they wrote is true. And what this does is it humanizes your program, yourself, your brand, your program, your school, and your community is going to appreciate that engagement. If people ask questions, you never want to leave a question or comment on a post unanswered. It's good to answer these for your organic reach, but it's also really good for your brand presence. And if you do run into a pretty serious negative situation, you can also ask community members to reply on your behalf. So you could ask some students to jump in. And so yeah, that happened, but here's how the program or the department or the school, the institution reacted. So it gives an authentic approach, and still combats the negativity. So it's something you want to monitor and something you want to watch for. Okay, step 9, analyze and adapt. All the different platforms provide, for example, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, provide free analytics, free insights you can use to monitor your most and least popular posts. So you want to take a look at that. You want to look at what's performing, what's working, what's not working, and which parts you need to improve. And again, you want to keep your eye on the analytics. They're constantly changing, with more and more information provided typically. Step 10, I guess, is don't quit. You don't stop. You want to, again, put a nice schedule together and stick to it. It takes time, but I think you will see some results. And gosh, there's a couple references here. This finalesite.com has got a nice 10-step guide. And again, I borrowed the steps from their website. I thought it was a good list. And we recently finished a NSF ATE project grant, a small project grant with the EDC in Boston. And I do have a link here in the presentation to take a look at the award search and some of the work that was done with that project. So there you go. That's it. I'd recommend starting and giving it a try.
Great. Thank you, Gordon, so much for that presentation.
Well, thank you.